G'day guys, welcome to the second video of my channel. This is a part 2 to my Harry Potter What If Kingsley Shacklebolt was appointed Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. This video will be a direct continuation of my first video, so if you haven't seen that, go check that out. But in saying that, let's get into this video and continue on where we left off. Kingsley and the other teachers of Hogwarts cannot be seen aiding in what Fudge would see as a rebellion on Dumbledore's part. So Harry and the other students would need to find a discreet way of practicing. Ultimately, I still believe Neville would accidentally come across the Room of Requirement, as he does in the current timeline, and Dumbledore's army would still be founded. However, this time, with Kingsley on the side of Harry and co., I believe lessons in the Room of Requirement would be much different. In the new timeline, Kingsley, in collaboration with other teachers at Hogwarts, maybe with the exception of Snape, would work to provide Harry and the DA with the necessary resources they needed to combat the dark arts, in not just the area of defense against the dark arts, but also in other areas, such as herbology and charms, which would both be useful for cases in which healing and distractions are needed. I can see Kingsley and Harry making an arrangement that once a week Kingsley would make a round of the other teachers, gathering up resources such as books, scrolls, ingredients, and anything which may prove useful in teaching the DA members how to better defend against the Death Eater threat. They'd make a plan to store them beneath the One-Eyed Witch statue, which in the books is the secret entrance to the hidden passageway that leads from Hogwarts to Honeydukes. I chose this location as in the layout of Hogwarts, this is the closest of the hidden passageways to the entrance of the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom, which is where Kingsley would spend most of his time, making it convenient. For more difficult spells, Kingsley may turn to using detention as an excuse to personally train Harry with the intention of Harry passing on this knowledge to other members of the DA. By doing this, the difference between the original timeline and our new one would be a more formalized and educated DA that has a better chance of standing against the Death Eaters in the final films. Harry will still have a vision of Mr. Weasley being attacked at the Ministry and would later still be made to do occlumency lessons with Professor Snape, like in the original timeline. Now at this point, the question may be asked why Harry would have the lessons with Snape, someone he dislikes and frequently distrusts, when he has the option to be taught by Kingsley. I chose to keep this plot point the same because Snape was an extremely proven and skilled occlument who was able to block even the most skilled legilimens, such as Voldemort, out of his mind, as well as the fact that without these scenes, we would never have gotten those important clips which provide us with a backstory on why Snape has a disliking to Harry's father James and Harry himself. At this point, things are looking good for the future of the main characters, but Malfoy still has a part to play. And without Umbridge there to get Dumbledore arrested, Draco will be the next in line for that honour. Something that is little touched on in the films is the idea of school prefects. Percy gets in a few lines here and there about being a prefect in the earlier films, but from there, this concept sort of just falls off the earth. In the books, particularly the Order of the Phoenix book, notable characters such as Ron, Hermione, and Draco get the badge of a school prefect. The title of prefect gives these students certain abilities that other students are not permitted. Abilities such as taking away house points, dealing detentions to other students, and patrolling the halls of Hogwarts to ensure no one is wandering at night. In the books, Draco being Draco massively abuses his power as prefect, and I believe the similar problem would take place in the new timeline. Harry would be seen by Draco collecting the resources Kingsley had left for the DA from under the One-Eyed Witch statue. Using his prefect abilities to confiscate the materials from Harry, Draco would find out about Dumbledore's army and swiftly send an owl with the evidence to his father at the Ministry. Dumbledore would soon have an arrest attempt made on him by the Ministry and escape as he does in the film. Kingsley, still under the guise of a Ministry informant, would then be appointed as the Hogwarts headmaster. Kingsley's appointment as headmaster in this timeline would differ greatly to Umbridge's appointment as headmaster. In the biggest way, Harry would still feel as though he had someone to confide in and trust at the school. And he would also have a connection to the Order, and most importantly, to Sirius Black. Harry's connection to Sirius through Kingsley would have a massive effect on the story going forward. In this timeline, when Harry starts to see his godfather being tortured by Voldemort at the Hall of Prophecies, Harry would be urged by Ron and Hermione to take this knowledge to Kingsley immediately, in a scene that would play out something like this. Harry stepped onto the platform next to the stone gargoyle that led to the headmaster's office, shaking with nervousness, eager to know if his godfather was safe. As the staircase spun and Harry was raised, the thoughts ran through his head. He's safe. He has to be safe. He's the only family I've got left. This can't be happening. The staircase begins to slow as it reaches the top, a door appearing. Harry, in his haste to save his godfather, jumps the remainder of the way to the ledge where the door is located. He bursts through the door in a hurry and out of breath. He finds Kingsley sitting behind the headmaster's desk, just as Dumbledore had left it. Calmly, Kingsley asks Harry if everything is okay, noticing his stressed demeanor. Is everything okay? No, everything is not okay. Sirius, we have to save him. He's got him. He's hurting him to get me there. Harry notices in disbelief that Kingsley has raised his hand in a bid for silence. Calm yourself, my boy. Now where has he got him? The same place we found Mr. Weasley. Kingsley peacefully stood behind the desk and beckoned for Harry to come closer. Harry was beginning to get slightly irritated by the lack of urgency Kingsley displayed, but went closer anyway. To Harry's surprise, Kingsley reached for a small bowl of what looked like Floo powder and offered it to him, telling him to take a handful. Kingsley and Harry both turned towards the fireplace in the office and stood both holding Floo powder in their hands. Kingsley spoke the words, "Grimmauld Place." A gush of green flame cracked into view as they let loose the powder and came spewing out on the other end. Harry stood confused and unfocused as his glasses were out of place from the journey. Adjusting his glasses, Harry's eyes became focused once again, and Harry found himself standing in the dining room of Grimmauld Place. He could hear the light clatter of kitchen cutlery. Sirius sat alone at the dining table in his black dressing gown, with the Daily Prophet in one hand and an empty plate of what used to be his breakfast, bacon and eggs. A man without a care in the world, Sirius simply looked at Harry and Kingsley and wished them a good morning, raising a mug towards them. As they both smiled at one another, Harry rushed to Sirius, coming to terms with the real living man sitting in front of him. Sarcastically, Sirius asked Harry, "Aren't we supposed to be at Hogwarts teaching the next generation of Aurors?" They both had a laugh at the concept. Harry began the story of what led him to Grimmauld Place, telling Sirius about what he had seen and where. Sirius looked to Kingsley for confirmation, to which Kingsley nodded and said, "We got there just in time." Dumbledore lured the minister to the atrium with the promise of handing himself in. Fudge didn't expect to see what he saw, or who he saw. Sirius asked if the Order had taken any casualties in the skirmish, and was relieved when he heard the news of the Order's capture of several Death Eaters, including Lucius Malfoy. In this what-if/fanfiction scenario, I wanted to include as many in-universe concepts as possible to keep the story grounded and somewhat legitimate. After the events of this scenario, I wanted to be left in a timeline where Sirius still lived. The DA was greater prepared for the battles to come, and most importantly, that Harry still made a similar realization about what it meant to have love, friends, and family, and that these were worth fighting for. As to what happens beyond this what if, I would like to leave that open-ended, but will be more than happy to continue and create a what if that covers the remaining films and how they'd be affected by these events. Leave a like on this video if you'd like to see more what ifs, and subscribe for more Harry Potter content. Otherwise, thank you so very much for watching, and have an amazing day. Mischief managed.